What's going on, y'all? Flow State Podcast with yours truly, Harry Mack, back for another episode. We're going to talk about making a commitment to yourself, signing the contract that's non-negotiable, what to do when you fall off track. I'm going to answer some questions from the community, react to a freestyle, kick a freestyle of my own. You know what it is, man. Let's go!
This is from my Flow State. Add it. Yeah. Y'all know we back at it. Ain't it crazy how the mind works magic? We gon' show you the method behind the madness, cause this is from my Flow State.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Flow State Podcast with yours truly, Harry Mack. Very excited to be back in this couch, back with you all. Hope you guys are enjoying the podcast so far, man. It's really been a fun journey so far. We're just getting started, but really excited to be doing more of these solo episodes and also getting more exciting guests on here and picking people's brains. And, you know, selfishly, it's fun for me to bring some great people on here who I admire and get to ask them, the things that I've always wanted to ask them. So hopefully you guys are enjoying it as well. Peace to everybody that's, listening on the audio platforms, everybody that's watching on YouTube and seeing the video. Appreciate y'all so much, man. I'm stoked to be here with y'all. I wanted to reflect a little bit at the beginning of this episode on something that happened recently. And actually, I'll start by mentioning this clip that I saw that was really, really inspiring to me. I probably saw it maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it was a clip of Kobe Bryant. And, everybody knows I'm not much of a sports guy, so to speak, but I'm incredibly inspired by the great athletes and, especially those who kind of like share what happens behind the scenes, and what they had to do to become great and share things about their mindset and how they thought about things. So obviously rest in peace to the late, great Kobe Bryant. But in this particular clip that was so inspiring to me, he was talking about how, at the beginning of each season, he would set his training regimen, right? So he would decide in advance what his training regimen was going to be. X amount of time in the weight room, X amount of time on cardio, X amount of time, working on shooting, et cetera, et cetera. And he would set that at the beginning of each season, and it was like he would sign a contract with himself. And that contract was non-negotiable for the duration of the season, right? And I loved that so much, that idea that, he's not going to wake up a week later or a month later or 2 or 3 months into the season and question the training regimen. He's not going to wake up 3 months into the season and say, is this really what I should be doing? Maybe I'm going a little too hard on the weight room, or I don't know if I need to be doing this much cardio. I think I got this part figured out. Maybe I can, I can relax on that. It's like, no, this is preset. You signed the contract. This is the job. And it's non-negotiable. You don't even have to waste any energy questioning it. You just have to wake up and get to it. And it was really, really powerful. It was actually part of on IG where you could scroll through like 7 or 8 different clips, and by the end of all of them, I was crying. I was just sitting in the chair crying. But it was amazing. But this one in particular really resonated, and I thought about it very recently, actually, because I had this thing happen. As many of you know, we've been releasing a lot more music this year, which is very exciting, very fulfilling for me. I talked about that a little bit in the last solo episode that we dropped. But it's been fantastic, man. And one of the things that's been so great about it is I've finally kind of reached my flow within the studio. I've gotten to a point where I'm starting to hit that flow that I so often access as a freestyler, but in the studio. And that's kind of a first for me, which is really, really great. And I've been super consistent with it. I was really going into the studio, every day, basically, in the morning. And I was kind of honoring this sacred time at the beginning of my day, which is when I'm most alert and most excited. And that's when I feel the most creative. And, I was getting it in every day. And I have been growing so much, I feel, as a songwriter, just by getting those reps in and being so consistent. And this was something where, kind of similar to what Kobe Bryant was saying in that clip, I told myself, this time I'm going to commit, and this time I'm going to stay consistent. And then this really funny thing happened. I was actually having a conversation with some people that I work with who are just incredibly great people, and they have my best interests in mind and in their hearts at all times. And we were basically having a discussion that, led me to start thinking like, oh, you know what? It would be great, if I maybe started producing again. I've been rapping on all these incredible beats from, producers that, I'm connected with via the YouTube ecosystem, right? And that's been fantastic, and they do great work, and it's allowed me to be really consistent. But, based on this conversation that I had, I was like, you know what? Yeah, maybe it'd be dope if I was producing too. If I was making the beats, like maybe I need to set my drums up and at least start laying down the drum parts. And, it would also be great if I was, collaborating more with people in LA, where we can be in the same room and working in the same studio together. And again, this was all based on this like really positive conversation that I was having with these people. And the thing is, all of that stuff is really true. Like that would be great. Like it would be awesome for me to start incorporating my drumming into what I do. It's another element that I can add to my music. It would be great for me to start producing again. And it would also be great to start collaborating with people face to face, in person, and working with people where we can be in the same room and bounce ideas off of each other. And that would be a big growth opportunity for me too, right? Because since making songs is kind of newer for me, it's easier for me to just kind of do it in a silo by myself. And, I can just search all of YouTube for a beat that appeals to me in the moment, and that's easy. I can pull that in and just create something to it with no pressure. If I don't like it, I can just let it go. I never have to tell anybody that it happened, right? That's obviously very comforting for me at this stage in my journey, but it would be a great growth opportunity to collaborate with people in real life. All of this is true. But what happened next was I started, rather than going into the studio first thing in the morning and working on songs like I had been for months prior to that, right? All of a sudden, I'm figuring out how to mic up my drum set. I'm pulling out the MIDI keyboard and dusting it off, plugging that in. I got to re-download all my plugins that I used to use to produce. Now I'm doing that. A day goes by, 2 days, 3 days, a week goes by. I'm working on, recording these drum sounds, and this is all dope. It's rewarding, it's fulfilling, it's all great, right? But then what happened was 2 weeks go by, and suddenly it's like my eyes open and I wake up to the reality that I haven't been running the program. Like I haven't been doing the plan. The plan was to get in the studio and record, and to do that consistently and to do that every day. And now, even though I was doing these, positive things, they actually distracted me from the plan. And so I wasn't being consistent. And so a couple weeks went by where I wasn't in the studio recording in the morning. And I woke up to this only a few days ago. Now I've been back in the studio each morning for the past 3 days, getting back into the rhythm of it. But what was so crazy was, even though the things that I was doing were positive in a sense, like theoretically they were good steps, right? I woke up to the reality after those 2 weeks, and my thought wasn't like, well, okay, but I needed to do this. My thought was just like, yeah, but it'd be a lot better if I had stayed consistent on the plan for those last 2 weeks. While I was, if I was going to try to figure these other things out, I wish that I didn't stop doing the main thing, right? And so I thought about the Kobe Bryant clip of, you set the plan, you sign the contract, and then it's non-negotiable, right? And I was like, yeah, man, I get it. I get why he did that, and I get why that made him so amazing, at what he does. And I had this thought for the first time where it's like, the problem with the things that distract you from the plan are usually not bad things, right? The problem is not that they're bad things. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes you're distracted by bad habits or whatever it is, and I can relate to that certainly myself. But at this phase in my life, more often, the problem with the things that distract you from the plan are that they're good things. Like, they're positive things. They make a lot of sense. They would be beneficial. It would be great, to do these other things. But they still, at the end of the day, are distractions from the main plan. They pull you off the plan in another direction. And when I just felt that regret 2 weeks later, low-key regret of like, man, I lost 2 weeks of being consistent and making songs every morning, and being in that studio and making those songs every morning is what has allowed me to sort of enter this flow to where we're able to release music consistently. And we've, been dropping singles weekly for a while now, which feels incredible. And it's so great to be throwing so much paint on the wall and getting feedback from you all, and getting feedback from the audience, and seeing what feels good to me and what's working and what's, doesn't feel as good, and sort of adjusting my path. It feels incredible. And so even though it was just 2 weeks, I was like, damn, man, I should have been channeling that, that Kobe Bryant, that Mamba mentality, and just, locking in and staying with the non-negotiable plan. So yeah, something interesting. And, also self-compassion is really important, right? When I have these realizations, the worst thing you can do, I think, when you have a realization like that is start beating yourself up and be like, oh man, I dropped the ball. Because that doesn't help anything, right? That's just more. Now that's another distraction, and that's actually a negative distraction because that's just you being overly self-critical and it's just another obstacle that you're creating for yourself by being super hard on yourself. So for me, it's like, address the slight regret or the slight like, oh man, I really should have been doing X, Y, Z. Address it just enough to feel it, because I do think it's important to feel it, so that next time you're reminded. And then as quickly as you can just get back on the program, do that. The quicker that I can just bounce back, get back on the program, feel excited again, be back on the plan. And now, having fallen this slight stumble, now it's like I'm a little wiser. And next time a really good idea is presented that's going to pull time away from the main plan, I can say, yo, that's a really good idea. And at some point, I'm going to figure out how I incorporate that. But for right now, I got to stay focused on the plan. So
how much of that do you think, is that like a subconscious thing that you're actually procrastinating with these things? Or are you having that thought during it? Is that even present on your mind, or does it hit you all at once when you're like, I haven't written for 2 weeks?
Yeah, I think that it is. I think it's definitely a method of procrastination. Like I think it is somewhat subconscious though. Yeah, like or it's like I'm just not looking at it's like the truth is over here and I'm just not looking over there because I want to procrastinate. You know what I mean? It's like I'm just like, oh, but these are good things,
right.
And you can tell yourself that because they are. You're not even lying. Right. It's like, oh, these are good things to be working on, like in theory, and then the voice is like, yeah, but you know what you really are supposed to be doing and it's not these things. So it's totally procrastination. And I think that's what's so fascinating about this realization too, is that it's like staying consistent is so hard, but not even for the reasons that you think it's going to be hard. Like, for example, it's like you think it's going to be hard to stay. I would think it's going to be hard to stay consistent writing and recording songs because I'll just get lazy, or I'll just want to take the day off, or I'll just want to I'll just get tired of it or bored of it, or something like that, where it's like very clear and it's like, I'm just not showing up to do the work. But it's not that. It's because other great things that could be worked on come along, and that's like the real test. Like that's like the ultimate boss, where it's like, yo, you're saying no to good things to do the thing that you have decided is actually the best.
Yeah. In that way, it's got to all just be a balance, right? Because sometimes maybe you do need to focus your energy on the drums for a little bit. But then after a while, you're like, the drums are as good as they're going to get, and it's not progressing me in the way of what I could be doing and probably should.
For sure. Yeah, exactly. And it's just like, at what cost, Like it would be good and by the way, I do plan to incorporate the drums more into what I'm doing. So, there will, like you say, I will need to make time for that and figure out that balance. But it can't be like I take 2 weeks off the main thing to have fun getting drum sounds, So yeah, it is a balance thing. And I think too, it's like with any, this relates to all kinds of things, programs that people want to start for themselves. It's like, usually the plan is pretty good, Like, for example, if you are like, oh man, I want to work out 3 days a week, That's a solid plan. That's a very good plan. And so the hard part is not thinking of a good plan. The hard part is like remembering that the plan is good and that you want to do it a month or two in. When you wake up and there's a million reasons not to do it. Yeah. And when the reasons not to do it are obviously bad reasons, then that's one thing. But when the reasons not to do it are like, oh, but what if instead of exercise, I meditate? It's like, yeah, that would be great too. But like, you're not sticking to the plan,
Yeah.
And
it's
so
all making deals with yourself, just like what you were saying Kobe was so good at avoiding.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And if you decide, like, if you know it's a good plan and you decide in advance, then you don't need to question it. But that's so much easier said than done, because you're going to wake up at some point, you're going to be tired or whatever. You're going to be bored of doing the thing. Like after you've done it 1,000 times, it starts to feel boring. And like your brain is just going to start being like, hey, do you really need to do that? Like, is that really, maybe that's not it. Aren't you overdoing it? Like maybe you're over exercising, dude, like 3 times a week. I don't know, dude, you've been doing that for months. Like you should probably be careful. Like, it's like, that's the thing is you start questioning the plan late into it. And that's the whole thing too, I think, with like New Year's resolutions, you know? Yeah. It's like everybody has a pretty good plan for their New Year's resolution often. It's usually pretty solid, you know? Oh, you're gonna drink less, you know? That sounds pretty healthy, you know? That's great. But can you still be excited about the plan 2 months later? And that's what's so challenging for all of us, you know, myself included.
It's the slow burn, kind of like even on either side of it, whether you're like doing something really like working out on a New Year's resolution and then just kind of slowly get out of it, or even like you're mentioning with, you don't even notice that you've been focusing on these other things for 2 weeks because you kind of just slide into it, right? Yeah. It's kind of sneaky that way.
It's so sneaky, dude. Yeah, it's really sneaky. But I do think through practice, you can shorten the amount of time it takes to notice, you know? So that's one thing that I am happy about is in the past, like when I've tried to commit to making songs and recording music, like as soon as it started feeling too difficult, you know, I would just kind of stop. Like I would come in excited and it would be fun. And then, you know, after a month or two, I was like, oh man, like maybe I'd make a song that I really wasn't feeling. And maybe that would happen twice in a row, 3 times in a row. That's hard. You know, it's like, that's probably, I imagine how sports teams feel when they keep losing, you know, it's like, damn, after a few of those, you're like, oh, you know what? And then I got this freestyle thing I do anyway, that is so great. And I love doing it and people also love it. So, you know, it's not like I'm at a total loss for options in terms of what I could do. And so I would always just go back to freestyling and I would stop, and then months would go by, you know, or years would go by before I was like, yo, maybe I should try to get back to this thing that I know I'm passionate about, but is hard to do.
Interesting.
And so this time, the fact that it was only 2 weeks is actually really great. You know, you're shortening that gap. And that's also, on the last episode, we talked about meditation a little bit. I kind of think of this as like a macro meditation, because like at the micro, when you're meditating, it's all about, you know, you're trying to focus on your breathing and then you notice that you're distracted. And that's totally fine. That's part of meditating. But what it is it's like, how quickly can you notice and then come back to the breath? And like the more you meditate, the more attuned you are to like noticing you're distracted. So rather than like going on a 10-minute thought spiral where you're like in a whole nother universe, like you've thought about a million different things and then suddenly you're like, oh my God, wait, I'm supposed to be meditating. Okay, let me come back to the breath. Then you can shorten that. And then now it's just 5 minutes and now it's just 1 minute. And then eventually it's like only 10 seconds out into the drift. You're like, no. Okay, I'm back. And so this is kind of like for me, like sticking to a program in life is kind of like a macro version of meditation, because you're not trying to, like, nobody's perfect. So you're not saying like, I'm never going to slip. And if you have that mentality, I think you get in your own way, because then when you do slip, you're so upset by it that you're like, never mind, fuck it. You know, like, I guess I'm just not good enough, you know? Yeah. And that's that whole negative spiral thing. So it's like, yeah, okay, I'm going to get distracted. I'm going to forget that this contract is non-negotiable. I'm going to trick myself out of it, you know? But if I can notice that in 2 weeks instead of 2 months or 2 years, then that's the incremental improvement we're talking about.
Can be kind of nice there for a little bit, though, before it gets bad. Yeah. All of a sudden you realize when you're kind of coasting and you don't realize it's happening, there's a little bit of a charm to it, you know, whatever your escape is.
Yeah. Well, because we love novelty. Human beings love variety and novelty, you know? That's why it's so hard to be consistent. I mean, I think that's the hardest thing to do is to be consistent. And that's like, if you can master that or figure that out, I mean, it's like the biggest cheat code there is, you know? Like if you can just say, I'm going to show up and do this same thing every day and then the way that compounds over time, no matter what it is, like me saying, I'm going to record and write music daily, or, you know, people who exercise daily, whatever it is that you're passionate about or want to work on, it's that, you know, it's that thing of like those small habits add up over time. But yeah, it's so difficult to not get bored and, like you say, to not be pulled into the allure of novelty, something new. Yeah. It's like, what else is there, you know, to check out? And you know, we should also enjoy the variety that life has to offer, you know, from time to time as well. So it's not about turning ourselves into machines. But if there's something you really, really care about, or something that's really important to you, if you can figure out how to be consistent, man, for a long time, game over.
It's undefeated, man. It always works in one way or another. It might not be Kobe Bryant or Harry Mack at freestyle, but whatever it is, it might be helping you like mentally, physically.
Yeah.
You're getting better at something.
Without a doubt, even if you don't feel like it.
That's the hard part, right?
Even if you don't feel like it. Yeah, you feel like you've just been, sometimes you just feel like you're just banging your head against the wall for months.
Yeah.
But it's through that banging your head against the wall for months that epiphany comes, It's usually right around the corner. Like right when you're about to give up, that next great idea is like, it's right there. It's like 2 days. It's like, oh man, there's something I heard somebody say once that I think comes from like AA, like Alcoholics Anonymous or whatever, which is like, don't give up right before the miracle happens.
What is that, like dusk is brighter right before the dawn or something like that?
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah. That sounds right. But yeah, I love that. Don't give up right before the miracle happens, because it is that. It's like, man, it's like, why am I doing that? You start to feel crazy. When you're really consistent with something that's hard, you do start to question your sanity, right? Like, why am I even doing this? Like, is this even worth it? What's even going to happen? But
it's always darkest at dawn before. No, this Reddit user has this one wrong. I can't think of it. It's driving me insane.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you're saying, mentioning that phrase, I'm always telling myself that often.
Yeah.
When stuff is just stacked up and all of a sudden you're feeling that.
Yeah.
And I try. I'm like, this is, if you go past this,
yeah,
that's kind of what separates, like keeps you moving forward. And I don't know if I fully believe it when I'm saying it, but hey,
yeah,
it gets me through it a little bit.
For sure, dude. I mean, yeah, doing hard things is just, it's going to be required, of everybody. And so I would rather have the hard thing be pushing through on what I'm passionate about than be like me regretting that I didn't do that. And now the hard thing is that I'm like, feel very disconnected from my life. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Dude,
it's
love
always
it.
Dark. It's always darkest before the dawn.
There you go.
Yeah.
Darkest before the dawn.
What does that mean? It's darker until the sun rises? Wait, no.
I think it means just like the sun's about to come out, dude. Yeah, the sun's about to come out. You almost there.
Let's crack this code, man.
You almost made it. Dope. Well, dude, do we have some questions from the community?
We do indeed.
Let's see what we got.
For sure. Pull it up here for you.
Dope. And by the way, shout out to everybody who has been submitting these questions and also all the people who have been submitting their freestyles. Really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for supporting. We got the link for where you can submit your questions and videos in the description of this YouTube video. But if you're listening, harrymackofficial.com/flowstatepod. So please submit your questions. And if you want to take a video of yourself asking the question, do that too. That would be really dope as well. You can submit a video through that form, so you don't just have to type it up, but whatever works for you.
Yeah. We would love that.
Yeah.
Even like an MP3, almost like you're leaving a voicemail, whatever.
Yeah.
We want to hear from you. And feel free to chime in about anything.
Yes.
We got a ton of great submissions this week. So
that's awesome. Love it. All right, dope. Let's see. This is from Rob K. Rob says, "Hi, Harry. You are so inspiring. Thank you. Thank you for being a positive force for the world. My question, if you could go back and start your freestyling career over, what one thing would you do differently and why?" Wow. That's an awesome question. Shout out to Rob K. If I could go back and start over. Man. It's so hard for me to answer that question because in general, I feel very grateful for the way that things have unfolded. So it's like, it's almost like I wouldn't want to change anything because it's just been such an amazing journey. And if I went back and tweaked something, it'd be like, that episode of The Simpsons where he sticks the fork in the toaster and goes back in time and he'll like swat a fly and then he goes forward and everything's all messed up. So like, I don't know if the real answer is I wouldn't change anything because I'm just so happy with how it is now. But I do want to also address this question like theoretically. So I think one thing for me is, I guess I wish I could have gotten over my insecurities and fear faster. That would have been insane because, when I was a freshman at USC, I was blowing people's minds with freestyles like all the time. Like my homies in the dorm with me, we were having basically nightly ciphers, and they were just like challenging me, like do one about this, or like, all right, flipping through the dictionary and holding objects up and doing anything they could think of to try to stump me or to see how I would rise to the challenge of it. And then it would be like we would go over across the hall to another friend's dorm, and they'd be like, yo, you got to see this. You got to see this. Like, give them a word, da-da-da. And it was like I was going around everywhere, and people were like, yo, this is crazy. Like, where's the mixtape? Or like, what are you doing with that? Like, when are you going to, are you recording? And to me, it was always like, nah. And it was kind of like this too cool for school kind of air, which was actually just me trying to like cover up my own insecurities. Where I was like, oh no, like the truth would have been like, no, I'm actually too scared to do that, which I wasn't saying aloud. Instead, I was just like, nah, I'm a drummer, and it's whatever. I just do this. It was kind of like I just do this for fun almost, which wasn't true. It was like I was deeply passionate about it and had been for a long, long time. But up to that point, I had my group. It was me and State of Mind. It was me and my best friends. And so when you have the support, when you're doing it with 3 other people that you're super close with and you all love each other, and you're all working towards a common goal, and it's like I don't really have to deal with that same fear and insecurity. And then when it was like, oh, now I'm all by myself, and it's not State of Mind, which is 4 people, it's Harry Mack, which is me. And it's like, what am I trying to say? What am I trying to put out in the world? What is my sound as a solo artist? That was too much for me at that time. But I am, again, I don't regret the way that things unfold, but I do sometimes get curious because there were these like crazy opportunities in college where I kind of like brushed shoulders with people. I got to open for J. Cole when I was in college, twice actually.
What?
2 different occasions. And I opened for him the first time at a frat party, which is so insane.
That used to happen, man. I feel like there were always like big rappers popping in back in that, I don't know, that like 2010-ish college era.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just because we were there at that time, but...
Yeah, the college tour
Epic.
thing. Yeah, that was a thing for sure. Yeah, people were doing that and blowing up that way. And with J. Cole, it was like he hadn't dropped his debut album yet, so he just had his mixtapes. But he was still popping, and everybody knew he was like signed with Jay-Z and he was about to go crazy. But he hadn't like gone fully crazy yet, like where he never had to perform at a frat ever again. Like like only like a year later, it was like right at the last moment you could ever see him do that, probably.
Epic.
And and they knew that I've freestyled, and I got connected through a friend of mine at the time, and I got to open up and do 20 minutes or whatever with my band, stuff like that. And so and just other things, people that work in artist management or people that work at labels at various times, people from the music industry program at USC where I was studying or whatever it was, they would become aware of the fact that I freestyle, and I would impress them, and they would be like, yo, what's up? Like, what are we doing? And it was, again, it was just kind of like, what's up is what just occurred. Me doing that freestyle and blowing up the cypher just now, that's what I do. I bop around and I blow up the cypher. And then everyone says, oh, you must be you do this. And I'm like, well, not really. So I am sometimes curious. But the other side of that, and the reason why I say I wish I couldn't change, I wouldn't change anything is because, is because like I was a lot younger then, And so I do think it was actually like a benefit to me to be more mature by the time I did start like building a fan base and then like becoming like a low-key public figure. It was like I already had, lived quite a bit of life. And back when I was in college, I was kind of just like, I was still very immature, I would say. So So it kind of all worked out in a way that by the time I started like having some success where my videos started to go viral and stuff like that, I was ready. Like as a human, I was like, oh, I'm ready to make this happen for myself. And I'm very serious about it. And I'm ready to take it very seriously and like rise to the occasion. So
shout out to all the friends that gave you those little nudges to get out there.
Yeah.
Because that
yeah.
sounded like that's kind of what you needed to
totally
really do it outside the dorm room.
Yeah, absolutely, man. No, I needed to I needed those pushes, man. I needed those pushes along the way. But hell yeah, great question, Rob. Appreciate that. Let's see what else we got here. Hell yeah, this one comes from Jeff in Fresno. Shout out to Jeff. Big love to Fresno. All right, let's see. Any album/artist recommendations for someone interested in getting more into jazz? Hell yeah. Thank you very much for your question. Appreciate that, man. Yeah, well, I'm really into like 50s, 60s, kind of like hard bop music. So that's kind of like what I was the most into, which like people would consider to be straight ahead jazz, as opposed to like modern jazz that came later or what's being created now. But I was a drummer, so I was always kind of like drawn to the great jazz drummers of those time periods of the 50s and 60s. So I fell in love. The first drummer I fell in love with was Philly Joe Jones, who's my favorite drummer. He's amazing. And he played with Miles Davis in a group called the Miles Davis Quintet. There were multiple versions of the Miles Davis Quintet, but this was sort of like the earliest version of the Miles Davis Quintet. And so, it was Miles Davis was the band leader, and then John Coltrane was in the group, who's another giant of jazz and went on to become, a band leader himself and did amazing things. And then the rhythm section was Red Garland on piano and Paul Chambers on bass and Philly Joe Jones on drums. And that's the first group that I played along with as a drummer. Like I put the headphones on and pressed play on the CD. It was Relaxin with the Miles Davis Quintet. I think it was Relaxin is the one that has this song, If I Were a Bell, as the first track. And that was the first song that I played along with. I think it was Relaxin because there was a series of albums. There was like, it was always with the Miles Davis Quintet. So it was like relaxing with, working with, cooking with, steaming with. But I think Relaxin was the one that had If I Were, oh yeah, sure enough, hell yeah. So If I Were a Bell is the first song that I played along with as a drummer. And I really fell in love with Philly Joe Jones, and he's still my favorite. But, I was also really into Art Blakey, another incredible drummer. And the cool thing about Art Blakey was he was the band leader. So there's a group, Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers. And different people shifted in and out of the Jazz Messengers. It wasn't always the same lineup. It was always Art Blakey on drums, of course, because he was the leader. But a lot of greats went through the Jazz Messengers. Wayne Shorter, Lee Morgan. And just on and on and on. It was almost like a rite of passage, for a lot of people who went on to become really amazing, band leaders and improvisers and jazz giants, on their own, kind of went through Art Blakey's group. So I was really into Blakey. The cool thing about him is he's like, he played loud and he played hard, and he, it was a real like kind of energy, kind of thing. So that was just like amazing to me as a kid and still to this day. And then, the cool thing about jazz is it's not about the solo artist, it's not like Harry Mack or, Jay-Z or Beyonce or Taylor Swift or, now it's very artist centric, where it's kind of like a singular person a lot of the time. Bands are, I guess it depends on your genre, but I would say in the most popular, like in pop music, it's very individual centric. The cool thing about jazz is it's really about the group. And so, you just flip the CD over. It was a CD at my time. But yeah, all the cats are listed on the back, So the fact that I knew that John Coltrane was in Miles Davis's quintet and that he was the one that was playing on this If I Were a Bell, playing this amazing saxophone solo, I was like, oh, what's up with John Coltrane? And then I discovered his music, which is incredible, and some of my favorite. And he had his own group. So the John Coltrane Quartet with Elvin Jones on drums. So, you can make these leaps and you can very quickly expand out this web, and similarly, like Red Garland, who played piano on that first Miles Davis recording, is also a band leader, and he had the Red Garland Trio, which had other people in it. So, you just sort of like, I expanded out that way. But yeah, for me, it all started with Miles Davis, which I feel like you can't go wrong. That's a fantastic place to start. One of the certified, greats. If you can only name one name in jazz, I feel like 9 out of 10 times it's going to be Miles Davis, right? So you can start there and kind of expand out.
What's it like? Because you're talking about how, jazz isn't, it's more of like the whole group together and that, that way that they kind of synergize. But
yeah,
is that kind of odd? Because isn't jazz also, and I'm, basically my jazz knowledge is being around you.
Nice.
But aren't bands kind of stuck together at random times more than other genres? So is there like that kind of like brotherhood that like a touring like rock band would have, even though it is that more like of a, lean on me, lean on you type of genre?
Yeah. So The answer is yes to all of the above. So because what you're mentioning applies more to like being a freelance jazz musician in a city. Like that's what I was doing when I graduated from college. It's like I was a freelance drummer in Los Angeles. Yeah. So I was just getting hired by whoever would hire me to show up and play drums. Yeah. And the group would be different every time, often. Or maybe there's an established trio. We get together quite often. It's always me and the same piano player and bass player usually, but this week the bass player can't make it, so it's a different guy. Yeah. And so people would sub in and sub out. And the cool thing about jazz is that can happen and it's no problem at all because jazz is a language. So you learn this common language and you learn this these songs, this repertoire of songs, jazz standards. And so everybody learns those standards and there's thousands of them. So it's not like any one individual can necessarily learn all of them. Some people try and some people do learn thousands of them. But as long as there's some commonality, when you get all three people together, the middle of that Venn diagram, let's say there's 30 to 50 tunes that all of them know, then you can easily play together, and it's improvised music. So it's a conversation. So you can show up without really any context. And oftentimes I was playing with people for the first time on the bandstand at the gig. And nobody in the restaurant was like, these guys sound like they have never practiced together, and that's one of the things that's really special about jazz. But in terms of the like family vibe of touring and like getting those stripes on the road, there's that in a major way as well, especially back in the eras that I'm mentioning, like with these more famous groups like Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers. It would be the same organization for years sometimes.
That's what I was going to ask. The Quintet that you mentioned, how long were they together? Because I always feel like I'm always seeing kind of shifts around the big names there that kind of come together, which is epic. But. Yeah,
there are eras, but like I don't know how long the first Miles Davis Quintet was together, to be honest with you, maybe 4 or 5 years, maybe a little less, maybe a little more, I'm not sure, but they were together for years, and that was the band, when they got together, it was them, and so there are those sort of classic groups, and same thing like with the John Coltrane Quartet, and it was the same configuration for several years. Occasionally, like something would happen. Somebody would like go to jail, and then somebody else would sub in for us. Like, oh, why is it this dude on this recording? It's like, it turns out, the drummer spent a couple months in jail. Crazy stuff like that. Jazz is super fun to learn about because there's so much folklore. There's so much fun like stuff like that. But
it's dope because like you're saying, sometimes you would kind of meet your band on the stage at a gig. It's just like impossible to fake, right? So there's got to always be that respect. If you guys get it going, it's impossible to fake.
Yeah, you have to have done the work.
To a degree,
you have to have done the work for sure. Yeah, and it's cool. Jazz really is a conversation. It's the same as meeting musicians for the first time on the bandstand as a jazz player is the same as like going out and I don't know, meeting a new group of people for the first time. Being out in a public place and being introduced to, your new girlfriend's like group of friends or whatever. Yeah. You've never met those people, but you know how to speak the same language, hopefully. Unless you're dating somebody in Spain and that would be way harder. But yeah, how's it? Oh, nice to meet you. Oh, cool. Oh, do you live around here? Oh, wow, you're just visiting. Oh, and then you start having this conversation. That's what we're doing on the bandstand. I'm suggesting an idea. I'm like, oh, what? I'm going to say this right now, with my drums. And then the bass player is like, oh, we're doing that. And I'm like, somebody says something that surprises you, you react, or somebody's saying something that I feel like they're saying what needs to be heard. So let me just sit back and support that and not get in their way. This is what is important right now. And then when they leave a hole, I'm like, you know what? Since you said that, I wanted to ask this. And then I speak. And so it's just, it's really cool. It's this musical conversation.
Is that taught kind of when you're like studying jazz drumming? Is it kind of spoke that way? Or?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like comparing jazz to a conversation is a very common metaphor.
For sure.
Kind of the metaphor for learning about how it functions. Yeah.
Probably sometimes more of a comfortable conversation through the instruments than it is like afterwards, almost just like shooting the shit at the bar.
Yeah, sometimes I'd rather just talk through the drums. Definitely. Yeah.
Well, there is one more jazz question here if you want to quickly touch on before we bounce to something else.
100%. Yeah, let's see. Do you consciously consider the same things a jazz instrumentalist thinks when you practice improvisation, e.g., or for example, phrasing, rhythmic placement, harmony, tone, time, feel, etc. I always found your approach so fascinating and different to other rappers, as you are coming from the perspective of also being a jazz drummer. Excuse me. Yes, 100%. Everything that I learned as a jazz musician, I was learning at the same time that I was figuring out how to rap. Because I started rapping and playing drums at the same time. I was like 10 years old when I wrote my first rhyme, and I think I was 10 years old when I got my first drum set and started taking lessons. So to me, it was all kind of like one thing. But what was interesting was that like with jazz, I was learning it from teachers and like programs that I was becoming a part of, you know, and opportunities that I had to like go to like jazz camps during the summer or like be part of like a youth organization that had like a jazz band, and I would be part of these groups, or just through school being part of the jazz band. So I was learning it more in like from a curriculum that exists, right? Because like jazz studies is a thing. There's not like a freestyle studies program, you know, or you can't learn how to become a rapper in school. So that was the difference, was like I was learning these things about jazz in a very sort of like in a structured way, in a more structured way. And there's language around them and there's words for everything. But then with rap, I think I was kind of like subconsciously incorporating those things without necessarily even realizing it. But rap just felt like I was just playing, you know, like it was just like the most freeing thing, because it was like my thing that me and my friends were into, you know. It wasn't like, it had nothing to do with my parents or my teachers or my coaches or anybody else. It was like, nah, dude, like this is the shit. And we just want to do this because it's fun. But yeah, now at this point, there are so many things that I learned by being a jazz drummer and being a jazz musician that I incorporate into my freestyling all the time. Like all my phrasing and rhythm comes from you know, playing the drums, and obviously listening to a lot of hip hop music. So I guess I can't say it all comes from playing the drums, but basically my approach and my comfort improvising rhythmically, and my intuitive sort of like sense of how to create a satisfying phrase, right? Like like that. Like it repeats twice, it varies, and then it goes back. Right? So there's that motif of and it has repetition and like variation on a theme and these sort of like structures that are just underpinning everything and making it more satisfying to the listener. And while I'm freestyling, I'm not consciously thinking about like, oh, make sure you do a A-B-A rhythmic, you know, embellishment on a motif. You're not thinking about it because you've trained the muscle memory, so to speak, and these things are now just taken for granted. They're just a part of my natural instincts as a musician. But yeah, I mean, so much of it comes from playing the drums and playing jazz. And, you know, that's why I love to improvise as a rapper, you know, and that's why I love to freestyle off the top of the dome so much, is because to me, it's like the most organic and natural way for me to express myself. And it always feels right, you know, and I never really have to question it. And once I start flowing, I'm immediately entranced, and I could just do it forever.
That's dope, man.
Yeah.
I did see the rhythmic side always, but I hadn't really thought about it until you just talked jazz right before this.
Yeah.
It's got to help with the freestyle that you were trained to listen to your bandmates and observe the whole time when you're a jazz player. So now when you're rapping, you're doing the same thing, just with the environment, the people around you, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
That's a great point, dude. Yeah, I actually never really thought about that. But yeah, it's like, as a jazz musician, one of the first like hurdles you have to get over when you first sort of like get decent at playing is you have to be reminded that you need to listen, you know, because that's what happens is like, it's so hard to get your chops together, right? Like to get your basic skills together. It takes a lot of time and a lot of practice. And once you start to have a little bit of skill and you have some chops, you're proud of that. And you know, you don't have the maturity yet to know that you shouldn't just show off your shit all the time. That's what everybody wants to do. You know, when they first get some chops, they just use them all the time, even when they don't apply, you know? So that's when that'd be like if you go meet your girlfriend's friend group at the bar and you just start talking at everybody and, you know, don't leave any space for them to say anything. And when they do say something, you're like, yeah. But as I was saying, and you continue with your shit, you know, which sometimes we accidentally fall victim to that, right? Or we know people who tend to do that, and doesn't make for a fun conversation, right? So yeah, that's one of the first major hurdles is all of the older, wiser teachers. Usually it's like the OGs will be like, yo, you got to stop with all these chops. You're playing too much. You're not even hearing what this dude is saying. Open your ears and listen and contribute when there's a space for you to contribute and you have something valuable to say. And so, yeah, I never thought about it, but that is super helpful because when I'm freestyling, I'm not just in a silo. Like, it's not like I start freestyling and then I put blinders on and I don't notice anything. I have to keep the antenna up and stay super aware of the environment because all of the information coming into me is valuable and useful and essential to what I'm going to say next in my freestyle. So that's an awesome point, dude. That's amazing.
Been multitasking for a minute, my man.
Hell yeah.
You know what, man? Let's dive into a freestyle submission, actually.
Let's do it. Okay, hell yeah.
I'm kind of pulling a little bit of a detour here, but this is really dope, and I want to get it in front of you.
Sick.
Just one moment.
Perfect. Shout out to all the freestylers out there, man, sending in your clips. Appreciate you guys. Yeah. And now we got the beat situation sorted for you all as well. So there were a lot of great submissions the first time, and because we forgot about the whole copyright situation, we weren't able to end up using a lot of them because they were over beats that would get the video flagged and cause problems for us on the podcast platforms. But we got beat options for you guys now on the site when you submit. So
what's the deal with that? Are there like a catalog to pick from, or?
Yeah, there's a handful of beats. I can't remember how many we did, if it was 3 or 4, but you can download them right off the submission page.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yeah, we got a bunch of good ones, and one of them here is from Nicholas. So let's get that for you.
Hell yeah.
All right. He actually even sent a message in here. So, are you seeing this here?
Yeah. Let's see what he said. All right. So Nicholas says, hello, my name is Nicholas, and I'm from Spain. Shout out to Spain. Hey, call back. Here's a clip from my daily freestyle session. I practice every day. That's awesome. Sorry for the low quality setup. I've been thinking of recording these practices and uploading them to a daily channel. I can freestyle both in English and Spanish interchangeably. That's amazing, dude. And yes, dude, you're doing everything right. Don't apologize for the low quality setup. Everybody starts on a low quality setup, but it's awesome that you're getting the work in. I'm stoked to see this.
Dude, that's what I liked a lot about it, because we talked about that last episode. It's just like, work with what you got and just put it out there.
100%.
So I thought this was really dope, man.
My way, I be changing the flow, but I be changing the cadence, and I be going so dope. Let's go, yo! And I generate the next batch. I attack, I just snap something like Harry Mack, yeah. And I keep rhyming out of addiction. I be feeling the affliction of this addition of words, and I do it out of habit. I'm an addict. I be rapping, I be doing at it. I be opening up a track, something like a rabbit, out of habit, in its own habitat. The rabbit be going off at it. Let's go, and I do it just like that. Desde la unión que vengo con el rap, es mi honor el compartir este amor. Sabes que a veces también trae terror cuando voy y canto en público. Sabes que lo hago y es algo lúdico, pero aún así me siento nervioso. I'm a switch and fill you all with language, that Spanish you didn't expect it. I'm an accent, yeah, and I'm sharp as a thorn. And I just get ready straight to perform. And then they say nothing rhymes with orange. Okay, bro, but I let the beat torn.
Hey, that's dope. That's dope. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Nicholas is his name, right?
Yep.
Shout out to Nicholas, dude. That was dope. Thank you for sending that in, man. I'm so jealous of people that can rap in multiple languages, dude. That's so sick, man. To just be able to seamlessly flow from one into the other, like whenever you feel like it, and suddenly it's a whole new palette of colors to play in. That's so dope, dude. So hats off to you first and foremost for the bilingual element and incorporating both into your freestyling. Because I have to imagine, even if you're fluent in both languages, that it's still just a whole new set of challenges. Like, just because you're fluent in both languages, I have to assume that doesn't mean that, like, whatever level you're at freestyling in the one language is automatically applied to the other language. Like, I would assume they each have their own sort of unique hurdles and challenges as you're coming up. So you're killing it in that respect off the top, man. But no, man, I loved the energy. I loved the I felt a lot of joy coming through the screen, and I feel like that's a big thing, especially for me. Like, I'm always trying to convey, not even trying, to be honest, but I I'm always conveying the fact that I love what I'm doing because I genuinely love what I'm doing, you know? So I don't have to try to convey that. And I felt that from you too. Like, and that's so awesome to watch. And that's always going to just be such a value add, you know, to what you do, because people love watching other people do what they love, right? And it's contagious. So I love the energy, and yeah, dude, using the random word generator is a great tool to practice, and I work on that all the time. And you were incorporating the words, and you were also, you know, scheming a little bit, which is to say, like, not just rapping the word itself, but also free associating maybe to a related word and adding that on. And with addition, like, I saw sometimes what the challenge can be with the random word generator is contextualizing the word, like in a sentence, and making it sort of like make sense and sound fluent. So like I saw you set up addition with addiction. And you had some other word in there as well that rhymed with it, but it was something like, yo, I'm just out here rapping out of addiction, and I hope y'all are ready for this addition. And I was like, oh, that doesn't necessarily make that much sense on its own, but what you did that was smooth and works really well is with this addition of words, and you continued from there. So it was like, it's that over the bar line thing of making sure that the word actually like makes sense contextually in a phrase that communicates something. If you had just moved on after saying, yo, I'm rapping out of addiction, hope all of y'all are ready for this addition, and I'm right here on this mic, it would be like, oh, okay, it works, it rhymes, but what do you mean ready for this addition? Like, are you doing some math homework right now? Like, what, like, what are we adding on, you know? And so that would have been confusing, but you fixed it with that over the bar line kind of phrase, which is nice too, because it's unexpected. You know, the sentence doesn't end where the rhyme ends, it ends halfway into the next bar, which is a really useful tool as a freestyler too, because sometimes we don't know exactly how we're going to incorporate these words, so we have to kind of like stretch into the next bar to make it fit. So yeah, I mean, I would say on the constructive tip, one thing that I think you might benefit from working on is considering the structure of your phrases. So a lot of times, like when we're freestyling, the phrasing is very just like loosey-goosey, very malleable. It's just whatever it has to be to keep the ball in the air, right? Like if you're juggling or whatever, it's like whatever you have to do to not drop the ball, you're doing that. So what I mean is like the rhymes will be like, hey, yo, I'm here, and I'm just spitting something that is clear as soon as it appears, and no fear, because I'm not ever scared, but I am remaining aware and unprepared. And you, by the way, were rhyming a lot smoother than that, but just as an example, it's like the rhymes are kind of falling all over the place, right? Without really having like a consistent structure. And so for me, one of the biggest things that separates like what sounds like a written rhyme from a freestyle is that exact fact that oftentimes the freestyle doesn't have a consistent repeating structure. So it's not predictable where the rhyming words are going to land because they're landing all over the place. One time they land at the beginning of the bar, next bar they land in the middle of the bar, then they land at the end of the bar, then there's 3 crammed in really quickly, then there's a long gap between the rhymes, right? And that can all sound great and be really dope, you know, because it has this loose improvisational feel. But for me, one of the things that is so powerful as a freestyler to really level up is to work on committing to a consistent, repeatable structure. And the most basic, consistent, repeatable structure is a rhyming couplet where the rhyming words are happening at the end of the bar. So a rhyming couplet is just 2 lines. Yo, I'm just sitting right here on the couch, kicking dope freestyles all about my mouth. That's a rhyming couplet. And in that example, the rhyming words couch and mouth came at the end of the bar, like close to beat 4. So if you're thinking 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe I should reverse this for the people at home. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, rhyme. 1, 2, 3, couch. 1, 2, 3, mouth. Yo, I'm just sitting right here on this couch. All these dope freestyles coming out my mouth. Y'all know this freestyle here, they can't beat it. Simple structure that can be repeated. So the rhyming words start falling at like roughly the same place, and it's consistent, and you're establishing this motif, right? And so what that does for the listener is they're like, oh, there's structure here. Like humans love structure. We love patterns. We're like obsessed with patterns, probably because we have to be able to recognize patterns to survive. Well, we used to. I guess we still do to an extent. Like But definitely back in the day, you had to be able to be like, oh shit, lion, danger, let's dip, you know? That's a pattern that you recognize. And so, you know, we really love patterns, and we love when it feels like there's structure. So that's why, like, for beginner freestylers, where the rhymes are kind of landing wherever they happen to land, and you don't yet necessarily have control over the structure, right, to be expected when you're starting out, when somebody listens to that, they're like, oh yeah, it's dope. Like, it sounds like he's improvising, you know, for sure. Like he's winging it, he's figuring it out. But if you can practice these rhyming couplets and putting the rhyme always in the same place, and it doesn't have to always be on the 4, there's a ton of different repeatable patterns that you could eventually grow into. I would recommend starting there, because that's kind of like the most standard bread and butter, like basic way of doing it. But if you can practice that and get like a really good control over, like, you're intentionally putting the rhyme in the same spot every time, it's super powerful. And that's when people will hear your stuff and be like, yo, it's crazy because he's improvising, but it sounds clean, you know? And they won't necessarily know why, or they won't know how to describe it. It's like, yo, he's making it up on the spot, but like, it sounds like you wrote it, you know? Or like, it sounds like he's in control of it, you know, because you, at that point, you will be fully in control of it. And yeah, the way to practice that too, by the way, for anybody that is trying to figure it out, is like, do exactly what I was just doing with the counting. Just remove every word except the 4. You can just 1, 2, 3, hand, 1, 2, 3, stand, 1, 2, 3, light, 1, 2, 3, mic. And then you start filling in some of the blanks. So maybe you just count to 2 and then you add a little bit of context. So like 1, 2, sitting on the couch, 1, 2, winning in the drought, 1, 2, we do the podcast, 1, 2, it's not for Comcast, 1, 2, whatever. And then you fill in more of it. So you only count to 1, 1, sitting right here on my chair, 1, pulling lyrics out of thin air, 1, piece of people watching at home, 1, when I rhyme, I'm up in the zone. Then you replace the 1 with just a sound like, because then nobody can tell you're even doing an exercise anymore. I replace the word with a sound. Yeah, y'all know what's about to go down. Hey, check out the way that we move. Put in practice, then we improve. And then eventually you can smooth out all the gaps entirely. I don't need a gap. I don't even need a sound. I fill it all with words and they all are profound. If I say I'm illest off the top, then I meant it. I don't need no space to breathe. I kick a sentence, then a paragraph, and eventually a book. I stomp on the fault line, leave the game shook. And now you're just flowing, but it's all happening in these couplets where the rhymes are landing just the same place. Every time, landing in the same place. And you might say, well, isn't that too predictable? And, yeah, eventually it will be, but you don't have to worry about it being too predictable until you can do it. That's my thing about this, is like, eventually there will come a time where you've really been putting in a lot of work and you can really nail these couplets and you can always put the rhyme in the right place. And then it's like, yo, I got to switch it up, because now it always sounds like I'm just doing these same basic couplets. Like, what's next? And you can start to explore that. But the thing is, it's so much harder to be able to go from having no control over where the rhymes are landing and just always being at the whim of when the rhymes come to you and having everything sound kind of like it's always just all over the place, to go from there to being able to do the consistent thing where you are intentionally putting the rhyme in the same place. That takes a lot of work. You know, like, that takes really focused practice for a long time to be able to do that smoothly. And so to be able to do it, you will learn so much along the way, and you will be a completely different freestyler than you were previously by the time you can do that. And then, yeah, you can start addressing the fact that now it sounds too cookie cutter and too predictable, and then you start finding other patterns. But I think that's huge, man. I think that's so huge. And I think that would be really big for you, man, because you're killing it with the rhyming words. You're finding the rhyming words. You're scheming. You're rapping in multiple languages, dog. So you're already ahead of the game in so many aspects, and your energy is great and your delivery is good and you're using the tools available to you. You're doing everything right. But I think that's the next evolution for you, man, is to start really thinking about your phrasing and the structure you're putting around the bars.
Hell yeah. I think it's really dope. He's saying how, he's considering posting these practice sessions every single day.
Do that, dude. I love that, man. I love that. Yeah, that's one thing. By the way, call back to the question where somebody was saying, what would I change about my journey? I think I probably would have started documenting it earlier. You know, I did it all in a silo, and then, all of my research, like for feedback, my research groups were done at the house parties when I was in a cypher, that's when I would get feedback. But nowadays, you know, you have social media, and I know it can be scary to post stuff and put yourself out there, but I think it is valuable to start documenting your process, and people will want to see you win, and they'll be able to see your improvement. And then what's really cool is, you know, 5 years from now, when you're like, you know, just killing it as a freestyler and everybody knows who you are, they can scroll all the way back to 5 years prior, when you were just getting started, or not even just getting started, but at the level that you're at today, and follow that progress. But you're killing it, dog. Keep on doing your thing, man. And thank you for sending that in.
The switch up, English to Spanish, back to English.
Dope.
I didn't expect them to go back.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, that was dope.
Super cool.
I've got an old clip. It's not that old here.
Yeah.
But a short that we posted recently.
Hell yeah.
Yourself rapping.
Yes.
And I want to throw it in front of you here.
Let's do it, dude.
Hear what you think about this.
Yep.
One of my faves.
Yeah, this is a classic right here.
Harry Mack, yo, I'm about to do my thing. I'm a rep the USA, I'ma get an Olympic ring. When I'm on the mic, man, I'm about to break the mold. If I get the medal from Olympics, it is gold. Yeah, never silver, step up in the bronze. Off of the top, new lyrics getting spawned. Yeah, y'all be enjoying it good. He be rapping classic movie called Boys in the Hood. Harry Mack, when it comes to rhymes, I'll be nice, dude. I'm trying to be more famous than Ice Cube. Harry Mack, man, you know I'm a bad dude. Harry Mack on Instagram, check out the latitude and the longitude. Bring it all together. When it comes to rhymes, ain't nobody pressure for the pressure. I'ma keep it moving, always improving. When I be on it, every lyric that I'm kicking off the top is hella honest. Yeah, people gather around just to hear this. Every time I spit, it's coming from
Hold
the
up,
spirit.
pause it right there real quick.
And you know we
When I do every lyric that I'm kicking off the top is always honest or whatever, that's drumming right there. That's the drumming. I was just purely thinking rhythmically, and in drumming there's like accents and taps, you know, so it's just two different volumes to hit the drums. An accent is a loud note, and then a tap is a low quiet note. So you so you can create you know, those accent patterns. So that's what I was doing right there. Actually, just rewind it back and look like a...
I was actually going to ask, is it like hard to get out of that sometimes? Because it feels like you just slid right in there and just rode it out for a little bit longer.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, every rhythm I slide into, it kind of happens organically, you know, because it's happening in real time. So I'm not thinking about like, oh, now I should do this. It's like, it's already happening.
It's happening again.
Yeah. It's like when, like... I was told about an interview with Magic Johnson that I haven't seen, but and I don't think I've mentioned this on the pod yet, but if I have, it bears repeating. But they asked him how he was able to just always get through the defense, you know? He was like, all I can say is there's this gap, and by the time I realized that there was a gap, I'm already through it. Because if I had to actually think to myself, oh, look, there's a gap, it would close. And so that's what these rhythms are. That's what freestyling is. And to me, that's what flow state is. It's like there's this rhythm there, but by the time I'm like, oh yeah, that's a dope rhythm, I've already used it, you know? And if I had to conceptualize it, I would drop the ball.
And if you ever miss the gap, you have to just completely move past it without any hesitancy of thinking about it, or else you're even more.
Exactly, yeah. You got to immediately let go of the desire to have had that one, you know? Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Y'all up on the stage once again. Yeah, yo, and I even got the check mark. That's Henry Mack, it's Harry Mack. Yo, that part. Hold up, it's HARRY. You can find me on Instagram, I'm a hard guy. Yeah, Harry Mack, lyrics sounding well writ. While I kick a freestyle, I teach you how to spell shit. Yo, it's H Mack up the top though. Every time I be banging with the hot flow. Yeah, yo, I lead him to the slaughter. Not Henry, it's Harry, like Harry fucking Potter. Harry Mack, yo, I'm about to do my thing.
That's one of those classic moments where they're all kind of, you know, just watching him pretty chill, and then you hit that well-writ line.
Yeah.
Everyone kind of just broke the ice there.
Yeah. Nah, dude, that's a fun one, man. That's also very throwback. That's
what is it?
that's right when I first that's Guerrilla Bars 10. So, or no, Guerrilla Bars 7? Yeah, I think it's 7. I think 7 is when we came back. But basically it's the first one of me coming back after basically I think taking a little break from doing it, and I was about to like go super hard and double down. And this was the first session that we did like a big batch right before the pandemic happened. And so this was like the first one of us getting out there and doing it. And so, yeah, this is an older one, but yeah, man.
Where is this?
This is Venice Beach.
Okay.
Yeah.
Should have known.
Yeah.
When you say a big batch, like, what are you talking about? You guys are just out there all day, or?
Well, this was the first. So we, for 2 months, I went out every weekend, both Saturday and Sunday.
Damn.
And batch content, which is how Guerrilla Bars kept coming out through basically the whole pandemic. It was the most serendipitous, weird thing. we like the last weekend that I was batching content, I was like, cool, I think we have enough for a while. And then like a week later, it was like, you can't go outside anymore. And I just had a hard drive at my house and I was like, oh my God, dude, like we have fucking episodes. And this was also the first one that like went viral-ish and like got a lot of views kind of since like the earlier videos, 2017, like the big sort of like momentum run from back then that I had. Things had sort of quieted down. I took the break to work on my album. That was a big learning experience, lots of mistakes were made and I sort of learned from them. And then I started getting back into doing the YouTube content, but things were a lot smaller. The videos weren't getting nearly as many views. People had kind of, I think, forgotten, oh, who's this dude again? Oh yeah, the freestyle guy, whatever. And then this one was the first one where, after that phase where it was like, oh shit, hell yeah. Okay, we back. But yeah, dude, crazy clip. Some funny things about this. So first of all, I love the Ice Cube reference too, because the previous episode we reacted to me rapping for Ice Cube, and at this point I can tell you that the idea of me rapping for Ice Cube was nowhere on my mind. So that's really cool. And then the other funny thing is this dude starts asking me, the guy in the Olympic jacket starts asking me, what's your IG? What's your IG? While I'm rapping. So I was doing the scheme about Ice Cube and I saw the guy's shirt and I was like, yo, I'm trying to be more famous than Ice Cube, which, I'll do respect. I can never, shout out to Ice Cube, okay? I'm not actually trying to be more famous than him and that would be very challenging to do. Shout out to the legend. But when I said that in the bar, then like his shirt has like a map on it, right? Yeah, it has like a world with a grid. Yep. And so I started rhyming about latitude. I started setting up latitude. And so I said like something, I got the ill attitude. And then, but I was hearing this dude yelling out, what's your IG? What's your IG? While all of this was happening. So I just turned to the side in the middle of the couplet and I go, Harry Mack on Instagram, check out the latitude. So I just embedded it in the middle of what I was saying, which is very funny to me. I was like, yo, off the top, I got the ill attitude. Harry Mack on Instagram, check out the latitude. So I'm like, let me answer this dude and then let me return. And then he does the whole thing where he walked up to me. And also shout out to that dude because the whole reason that this clip went viral and has been sort of one of the popular ones is because of the whole spelling my name for the IG while I was freestyling and sort of like breaking that down while I was talking to him in the freestyle. And it's just cool that happened so organically, because it's one thing to freestyle about like random words or random things that you see where you can use this sort of setup punchline structure. Like me having a certain attitude has nothing to do with latitude, but they just rhyme. And so I can use it and I can fill in the blanks creatively and connect those ideas. But when I have to actually like explain to this guy sort of coherently that he's misspelled my name and then explain how he should spell it and like correct him continuously, you have a lot less leeway to just like creatively fill in the blanks. I'm kind of like talking like I'm talking to you all right now, right? But I'm doing it in a freestyle. So it's a lot more challenging. Anytime you have to tell a story or explain something coherently and you can't just go off on tangents about how you're the dopest or whatever, or I'm crushing the mic. Anytime you're not afforded those tangents, it becomes more challenging. And so this was just one of those really cool moments where I was organically faced with that challenge. And, luckily we pulled it off in a cool way. But yeah, hopefully he I don't know if he still follows me, but shout out to dude.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, man, that's a classic. It's a classic. I didn't recognize that as Venice Beach for some reason, but
yeah. Yep.
Still out
the
there.
old stomping grounds.
I think it's hilarious that everyone's looking at you like, yo, what are you stocking up for, Mac? What you going on again for on a Sunday? And then you're like, well, didn't really plan it that way, but it came in handy.
Yeah, that was crazy the way that happened. Yeah, the stocking up on Guerrilla Bars before the pandemic, the announcing that we were ending the Omegle Bar series and stopping it days before Omegle shut down. There's all these like crazy coincidences that happen, man. But yeah. Wild.
For sure.
Hell yeah. Yo, shout out to everybody watching. Shout out to everybody listening. Another awesome episode. I'm really, really enjoying having these opportunities to open up and talk to you guys and answer some of your questions. I'm loving the questions you guys are asking. They're super thoughtful. Loving to see the freestyle community just growing and blossoming out there. And I mean, that to be honest with you all, that's one of the like best parts about this journey that I'm on. Is, come to find there are so many people out there that love to freestyle like me. And there are so many people that are really putting the work in and creating content and practicing. And I just love to see that, man. And I think for a long time, freestyling was a very niche thing, and it maybe wasn't seen as something that you could develop into a career, even though of course there were examples of people who did that in a legendary way. But it's cool in this internet era to be able to share it broadly, and it's something that makes me feel so happy, and something that's brought me so much joy and allowed me to express myself in a way that I otherwise wouldn't be able to, and happy to see other people doing it. So shout out to the whole community out there. Couple plugs too. Like I said earlier in the episode, the music is coming out, man. I had my 2-week vacation. I distracted myself with another good thing, but now I'm back where I need to be, and making a lot of music, and I'm very excited to get it out to y'all. By the time this episode drops, more singles will be out in the open. Prove It to Myself is out. Get Away From Everything is out. Fire. I think, if my ability to predict the future is as finely tuned as I hope it is. But in any case, tons of music coming out. Thank y'all for supporting the music. Make sure you follow on Spotify if that's where you listen. Apple Music, Amazon Music, Tidal, whatever it is, man. Tap in. And thank y'all so much for streaming those releases. Speaking of music, we're going to close this thing out like we always do with some bars. So let's get it.
Let's go.
Ian James on the beat.
Yeah, come on. Yeah. 1, 2, 1, 2. Listen. 1, 2, 1, 2. Off the top of the dome, we gon' send this through. Yeah, I grab the mic and then I flow for you. I sign the contract, it's non-negotiable. Yeah, every time I spit, they know the flow be giant. I'm trying to do like the late, great Kobe Bryant. R.I.P. to the legend. I blow your mind with bomb raps. Come up with the training routine, then sign the contract. Cause the next morning or a week later, that little voice inside your head, that cheap skater, is gonna be like, do you really need to do it? I mean, we know you passionate, but must you pursue it to this level? I mean, to this degree? I mean, honestly, dog, take a witness, please. Look at how hard you're working. For real, are you certain you don't want to exercise the day your arm's hurting? Hey, yo, you still sore from the last workout. Maybe you should chill. I'm not so sure about the route, but that voice is just trying to distract. Yeah, and I ain't got no time as the Mack. I know what I'm meant to do. I'm recording these songs. I'm documenting the journey. Y'all can follow along. Listen, I signed the contract, so I rise up to the duty, bro. I put the work in on the daily in the studio. Yeah, I'm trying to make it understood. Distractions ain't bad cause they bad cause they good. Another good option indeed. I spit hot like the summer, but I ain't showed the world that I'm a real drummer. Maybe I should incorporate that or make beats. If I put time in on that, they might be straight heat. And that's facts, yes, it's true. It's something I should do. At some point in time, it's what I need to pursue. But as of right now, I'm writing songs and composing, and over time I feel like that frozen piece of my heart has melted. Finally thawed, and finally I can express emotions that are more raw. I'm making so much progress. I know it's incremental, but I'm learning how to write and record over instrumentals to a new degree. Finally can speak the language fluently. And with 2 more weeks, what would that do to these skills I'm possessing? But sure enough, those 2 weeks were lost. Damn, must remember to be a boss. But self-compassion is needed in these times. Slowly but surely get back to cooking these rhymes. The sooner I can get back all up on the plan, the sooner I can rise and elevate as a man. No hating on myself, no downward spiral. Acceptance of the truth, that is vital. It's like a macro meditation. Before I meet my death, I gotta bring it back to my breath. The sooner I can do that, the sooner I can speak. It used to take 2 years and now it's 2 weeks. Check the way I freak right off the top of the dome. Every time that I'm spitting these lyrics, they know that I'm locked in the zone. Hey yo, who's that dude Mack? Better rack your mind. If I could change shit up, go back in time, man, I wouldn't change a thing. It unfolded how it should. I'm here where I'm supposed to be. I feel it's all good. Sometimes I do wonder if when I met J. Cole, I should have said, yo, can I sign to your label? But yo, I wasn't facing my fears. I didn't see the path in front of me more clear. I was still dealing with it and it took mad time. Yeah, had to figure out how to lyrically shine. Yo.
Let's keep it going,
Oh shit, okay.
Let's keep it going.
We got another one? All right, let's go.
Encore.
James on the
Yeah, encore, the people they want more. Whenever I spit it right off of the mental, you know that I'm really the strong lord, the song lord. When I put in the work, whenever I'm rhyming, they go berserk. You know that they turning it up loud to the decibels, making their ears heard. Back for more, kicking raps galore. It's the Mack and Lord, real king. When I spit, I start to do my thing. Listen, hey yo, that path, it wasn't meant for me. I was on my own trajectory. Everything takes time, my train is on schedule. Yeah, these thoughts good for your health like vegetables. Several styles, man, you know I spit the true vision. When I rap, I'm channeling jazz musicians. Miles Davis, Red Garland on piano. Paul Chambers all up on the bass, he's off the handle. John Coltrane, the giant on the tenor saxophone. Philly Joe Jones with drumsticks to bash your dome, it's essential. We gon' keep it moving when we spit it off the mental. This flow that I be using, not a rental. Yeah, and when I grip up on the mic, you know I'm blessing ya. I play like Art Blakey, I'm the freestyle messenger. Put it down for all of the fans that stay supporting, improvise like my name Wayne Shorter or Lee Morgan. I'm back for more, hitting y'all with the melodies. And when I be spitting these lyrics right up in the mental, you know that they hella free. What? We back in it to win it, and that's known. Yeah, it's H-Mack shining like chrome. I'm really in the zone. Y'all know they ain't bending us. Gotta make sure I'm listening, keeping my antennas up. Cause young musicians is all about the chops. Till the OG old heads say it needs to stop. You gotta open your ears, contribute when it's needed. But you don't gotta say the same shit that's just repeated on and on. You getting in the way of the song. So yo, chill, leave some space, dog. You playing it wrong. Had to learn that lesson early on. Now my radar is well adjusted. So anything I see, I can clutch it, then bust it. The one they can't fuck with. Yo, in this game of life, y'all know Mack gon' shoot his shot like a musket. Chick, chick, bow. We about to do it here and now. I rock in front of the crowd. I'm doing y'all proud. I got the jazz linguistics. It's never simplistic. Yo, every time I spit this, they bearing the witness. Yeah, I told y'all I'm the one they can't fuck with. Shout to the young freestylers working on their couplets. Y'all know it's unbelievable to freestyle with patterns that are repeatable. Yeah, every time I rhyme, I'm kicking lyrics galore. And when you training, you can learn to put the words on the floor. Counting with your fingers till it starts to linger, and I bring you something new. Every time I spit, I keep it true. And they say, Mack, doesn't that start to sound played out? Yeah, but trust me, dog, if you stay on this route, the skills needed to develop the ability to control where you put the rhymes will make you LSG. Yeah, the work works on you more than you work on the work, and y'all know that's true. So we gon' keep it on. Lyrics sounding well writ. While I kick a freestyle, I teach you how to spell shit. HARRYMACKOFFICIAL.com/flowstatepod is where you submit your questions to the flow state god. I keep it honest with no facade. Ain't it odd? It's H-Mack. Grab the mic and let it go. Flow State Podcast. Just another episode. Wow.
Let's go.
Let's go. Thank you so much for watching, y'all. Love y'all. We'll catch you next time. Peace.